Alright, there we go. Now we are live. Alright, so this one is entitled The One You Should Have Watched First, or something along those lines. I don't remember. But I was supposed to do an introduction for the last video. Hi, my name is Andrew. I am the less attractive half of the Crypt Money creative staff. Unfortunately, I'm doing this video alone, but I feel like it's important because I am the Dungeon Master. I am the captain of the Pathfinder ship that has set sail on this channel, and I did a terrible, terrible job introducing it. Now, our first stream was great Pathfinder to play, but terrible Pathfinder to watch. I think we rolled dice maybe 3 or 4 times. Most of it was arguing or talking to characters who you have no idea who they are, which is problematic when you're trying to tell a story to a large number of people. Our tens of fans. I hope you didn't feel any kind of confusion. If you did, that's completely normal, and I am very sorry, because that was my job not to let that happen. Alright, so I think the first thing to do will be to talk about the world that this story takes place in. The world that this story takes place in is the world of Anariel, or at least Anariel is the continent. While a lot of fantasy takes place in old worlds, extremely old worlds, with time sweeping past great epics of the past behind, but that's not really how this world is. This world is a very new world. This is a world that is filled with the still blooming magic of creation in it. It's a fresh world. It's a beautiful world. So this world began some while ago when it was created by the direction of the goddess Taria. She's the goddess of life, death, fate, and seasons. And she directed the other gods to create this world, a world for her creation to flourish in. They are placed on the Isle of Dawn, an island far, far to the east, at the very edge of the world before the world fell off into space, or the space between spaces. And the creation was meant to dwell there in harmony. But through means unknown to the characters today, the story differs between various sects and traditions, the world fell. The world fell into great disrepair. The Isle of Dawn had become infested with darkness and evil. So, those who lived on the Isle of Dawn fled from it. And those who lived, they escaped far to the west, to the continent of Anariel. The first thing they hit in their escape. Anariel is a great continent, a long continent, almost like the Americas, stretching from the very top of the world to the very bottom of the world, except it is far thinner. But Anariel became the promised land. The species that were created escaped there, and immediately they began dividing up land. This race for land turned into something called the Noctis Orbis, a magical war, a time of great evil and suffering brought on by the conflict between the Dark Elves, the Drow, and the High Elves. They both wished to rule this new land, and they went to war over it, a very, very bitter war over it. This war lasted for 2,000 years. 2,000 years of darkness, unrest, constant horror, and suffering. This war came to an end when they were overthrown by the peoples that they had tried to subjugate. The peoples that overthrew them in this war created 2 great kingdoms to the north. The older, more noble, dragonborn empire of Enia, ruled by dragonborns, even though dragonborn are very, very rare in this setting. And to the south, Ionis, a bit freer, a bit less traditional, would you say, but a human empire in the warmer lands to the south. Those who they had overthrown retreated to the far extremities of the material plane, The Dark Elves went all the way down the material plane, right to where it meets the Underdark, and some crossed over into the Underdark. The High Elves retreated far, far to the north. During this time, there were some other power struggles. The Wood Elves had some power, but they weren't really particularly interested in conquest, and the Dwarves were too busy killing each other for control of their country, which eventually became 2 countries anyways. And that puts you into the setting where you are now. Roughly 1,000 years have passed since the Noctis Orbis. Enya is the setting of the campaign that you are watching us have. But in case you had noticed, the characters in this campaign are at about 12th or 11th level, give or take, and they didn't just get plopped into the world that way. Oh no, they started as first level characters locked in a jail cell for starting a bar fight. The story of these characters and how they got to where they are now is fascinating, and I feel like you need to at least hear a brief summary of it so you can understand what just happened last week. And by the way, if you've gotten this far into the video, I would assume that you're somewhat invested in it. If you hear me talking about last week's video and you haven't seen it yet and you want to go see it because of how I'm talking about it, please don't. It's not a fun thing to watch. It was a fun thing to play, like I said, but not a fun thing at all to watch. So, out of our characters, we have a party of 6, sometimes 7. These characters are widely varied, and they're played by different people. For a world that is very human-centric, despite its mythic origins, we actually don't have a proliferation of humans as I had kind of expected there to be when I started this game. But it's okay. I like having characters play the wildest things they can come up with. The story of our characters begins about 3 or so years ago in the Southlands at a port city called Santa Marina. At that point, there were only 5 characters. There was some characters you met. There was Casita, the tiefling monk. I was going to call her a rogue because she gets to do some crazy things because she multi-classed as an assassin and a monk, but she's not a rogue, even though I always desire to call her one, though she does a lot of roguish things. To begin with her, a sorcerer of Dullahan origin. Now, Dullahans, I know, are a monster, but I made them into a homebrew race for somebody who really, really wanted to play one, and I think it turned out pretty well. I figured out how they worked into the world as sort of messengers and servants of fate, and there was a Dullahan sorceress named Rhiannoch. There was a dwarven priest called Minyor. There was Nexa, the half-elf bard and rogue, who was sort of doing a dual-class thing. I think we called it a harlequin when we started. And then we had one person I always forget was Noah's character, the Oread, whose name just escaped me. He was an Oread druid. I don't remember his name. It's okay. He and Minyor were very, very close friends. So these characters, they go on some low-level adventures. They find out that there is a plot to overthrow the villainous Jarl of Santa Marina, as led by the captain of his secret police. The captain of their secret police is somebody whom the gang has been paid by a mysterious politician named Admiral Diaz to off. Fortunately, they decide not to go in on this contract, but they decide that it would be an excellent idea to actually make an alliance with this character. This character is Kazaroth, the Dark Magus. She was head of the secret police for this town. She hated her job. She does have a bit of a mean streak in her, but she's not a person who enjoys being pointlessly cruel, which is basically what she was being ordered to do every day. She did the job because it was what her father brought her up to do. They decide to help her. She, in turn, following the orders of General Lucius, one of her superiors, takes out the Jarl and his court wizard, the Mullah, and lo and behold, it's all part of a big plot. General Lucius has a plot to then off all the people who helped get rid of these evil cancers inside the Empire, this Jarl and his wizard. Unfortunately, yeah, General Lucius is a pretty bad guy. He's just doing this so he can help sorry, I did miss one important part. The emperor of this Ennea is in particularly bad shape. He is dying of an unknown disease, and his two oldest children don't like each other very much, and this is prime time for there to be a clash over the throne after his death. His daughter Marilys and his son Drellus. Lucius backs Drellus in this upcoming fight, and he's trying to basically do a military takeover over the part of the empire that Drellus is governor of. Fortunately, through the machinations of a very clever man, an ally of the party, Lieutenant Santana, who is a mentor of Kazaroth and an all-round good guy, he is able to get her a last-minute job transfer to where she escapes to the northeastern part of Ennea, where Marilys is the governor. So there is safety there. Somebody who is an enemy of her brother and her brother's allies is certainly not going to be an enemy of hers. Once she gets there, she invites the players who have done her a good turn to come with her and basically have protected jobs. She owes them one, and she knows it. The players begin this journey. All during this time, they've been meeting a very mysterious old man. This man's name is Bertram. He appears to be a simple pauper, but he is also a whole lot more than that. He does sell some magical supplies, but that's not the only reason that they talk to Bertram. As they journey north, they encounter several things. They are able to slip through the net which Lucius has cleverly laid for them. They, incredibly enough, for a first-level party, they, in one round, take out a manticore, and they also meet another party of traveling adventurers, a wood elf ranger named Eliseth, and her companion, a human paladin named Melphus. They're very suspicious of these two. Eventually, after several sessions of traveling together, they decide they really don't trust Melphus, and he kind of hits the trail alone, but Eliseth sticks around for a while, even though they don't really fully trust her. All during this time, they're being tailed by an assassin named Nino. Now, Nino works for Admiral Diaz, and he's been hunting them for some time. And also during the time, the party has adopted a barbarian who they met in Santa Marina, a unemployed barbarian. I don't know what an employed barbarian does, but his name was, I forget his name, he was played by Sam, who occasionally rarely joins our campaign. Just as I cannot remember the name of the druid, they had the druid and the bard, and they are going adventuring to the north. After several months and a nasty encounter with some thugs who work for a criminal organization called The Divide, and after a nasty fight with Nino and the people who work for him, they eventually stumble into Blackmoor, unfortunately without their priest. Minur came to the town of Farron's Hammer, where many dwarves reside, and there he saw his faith being practiced, and he felt called to stay there in the temple and preach the good word of his deity, and there he stayed. Eventually they arrive in Blackmoor, a city of dark mysteriousness, buried in a thick, ancient pine forest on the edge of a vast northern steppe. Here, Kazaroth has become captain of the guard. However, things are being, well, off. Very, very off. There's an aura of dark magic around this place. The Jarl is a drunkard. There appears to be a lot of unrest in the palace. There's many unknown goings-on, and the players have some adventures going out into the great graveyard, known as the Moon Barrows. And there out in the Moon Barrows, they discover many things, including a plot to revive a powerful separatist magic user by the name of Quizzic Thunderwit. And the Quizzic adventure stretches out for several moons. They keep coming back to it multiple times. As it turns out, there's a group of drow who are allied with a group of nasty priests who is to see this guy come back so they could overthrow the Empire. During this time, they're also fighting a criminal organization called The Divide, who appears to be led by a half-elf named Anathema. They originally meet because Anathema sent a bunch of giant spiders to Blackmoor for reasons unknown. but they are able to fight her. They go back to the Divide Lair. She escapes, but they are able to get pieces of more information. They find out that Kazaroth, the person who's helped them, her ex-lover, a pirate named Rowan, has been working with this anathema character to work with the people trying to resurrect Quizzic. So you have all these threads eventually connecting back to General Lucius and Admiral Diaz, who are trying to seize control of the Empire through Drellus. They are using this criminal organization to get money and help these group of priests try to resurrect this powerful spellcaster who they believe can be convinced to their side. At this point, then, the druid retires. His best friend Minyor had also retired, and he needed a break. He was happy to stay home, try and run a small business in Blackmoor, and that left the party by themselves. The barbarian had also retired, as he was nursing some alcohol issues and some bad injuries, so he just decided to go off in the woods and live quietly by himself, happily ever after, as far as we know. The party then heads over to Teia, nearby Port City up in the north, where Rowan is currently stationed, with plans to influence Blackmoor politics for the ill of the party. They go there, and before they go, they meet a close friend of Kazaroth's from childhood. Noah's new character is Vilkas, a fellow Lycan. Something I did not explain. Kazaroth and Vilkas are both Lycans, canine tabaxi, for lack of a better term, wolf people. They meet. They were very close friends as children. Kazaroth betrayed him when they were older. He was always in love with her, but she was in love with Rowan, who treated her terribly and was a pirate, whereas Vilkas was the model soldier, an officer in training. He was going to be a war hero, or at least that's what he dreamed of being. However, he ended up being Kazaroth's toady for a long time, and they drifted far apart, but they were reunited. At first they tried to kill each other, but that's beside the point. They go to Teia. They also gather up a halfling priest on the way, played by Sean, who occasionally joins us. This halfling priest was both a pacifist, but also dreamed of world domination, and he used this to his advantage. They arrive in the city of Teo, where another corrupt Jarl is ruining another city. They have several interactions, sneaking past the guard, making friends and allies in the local soldiery, collection of soldiers, local militia. I don't want to say militia, because they are imperial soldiers. They just happen to be stationed there. I suppose the imperial garrison would be the proper words, but what do I know? So they make allies. They go out. Vilkas is able to raise a small group of men. They go out to Rowan's boat. However, Rowan has a plan and blows up many of these men. There's an epic fight on the boat, and eventually Rowan is slain. They discover the plans that link him and Anathema together. It all starts to come together. There's a plan to overthrow the burgeoning Empress, Marilys, who is now obviously and publicly favored by her father, and they are getting desperate to try and overthrow her potential reign. During this time, Vilkas accidentally, after becoming very intoxicated thanks to the priest, and due to the priest's manipulation, the priest is able to raise a mob in the city streets of Teia by telling them what the Jarl has actually been up to. These people storm the castle. There's an epic fight. Eventually they need to rescue the small imperial delegation. It's already there to deal with the Jarl's crimes and whisk them out of the city. And then it goes full French Revolution. The city's on fire and burning. It takes them weeks to restore order. But by rolling 2 natural 20s in one skill challenge, the priest becomes the Jarl of Teia. Don't know how that one worked out. Would I change how I ran it? No. It was fun. It was supposed to be very hard. He had to beat a 35 twice, and both times he rolled natural 20s. That's what happens. They go back up to Blackmoor. They deal with some more supernatural things. They catch on to the Drow plot to raise Quizzic Thunderwit again, and they put an end to that. And then they come across a news of a strange artifact far to the north in the abandoned dwarven city of Ramtharion. They proceed to Rantharian. They have some adventures. They discover goblins. They are the first people of this age to discover that goblins still exist, and there is a wizard there protecting them, and they eventually go on to have a good relationship with this wizard. As they adventure deeper, unfortunately, Rhiannoch is killed by some specters in the abandoned city, and we meet two new characters in one episode. We meet a gunslinger, a Aasimar gunslinger named Triss, played by Gabrielle Now, who is a noble gunslinger. She was separated, her party got killed by these specters, and she managed to escape, but she escaped blinded for the time being, and the party had to rescue her. And they also met a high elf alchemist, Ethan's character Elrahir, who was trapped here by the other high elves because he refused to help them with their wicked experiments. And he was there, he was rescued by the party, and now he works with the party. They went down, they killed the bone golem, they dealt with the undead threats in the city. They did not proceed into the apparently haunted mithril mines, but they did what they came to do. They recovered the artifact, they gave it to their ally Bertram. Plot twist, Bertram is actually a bronze dragon, not just some crazy old man. He's a bronze dragon named Berendir, and Berendir's job is to work for the goddess Taria. He, along with Rhiannoch, who was reincarnated as an angel, though she doesn't journey with the party, she can influence some of the things that the party does. And with Kazaroth, who has been receiving dreams both from Rhiannoch and from this dragon, are set out to protect, basically prepare the world for the planes coming closer together than they ever have before. The world before was kind of low magic, and all of a sudden it became very high magic because all the planes are coming very close together. And Taria stretches out her hand directly and involves herself with the material plane to prevent catastrophe as the planes basically crash together. Kazaroth, a priestess, an older priestess, and the dragon have to go off on basically what turns out to be nearly a suicide quest from which they must retreat. Kazaroth comes in at the last minute to help the party defeat their foes in Rantharian, and then they come home. When they come home to find that their allies, including the steward of Blackmoor, Lieutenant Lieutenant Santana, have been killed by Anathema. And her allies, General Lucius, Melphus, the paladin they once thought to be their friend, and a few other characters. Oh, and a dragon. A dragon who turns out to be Admiral Diaz, the shady politician who first tried to convince them to join his cause in the very first session, comes back as a black dragon. The two dragons, Berendir and Diaz as a dragon, the party doesn't quite know what his real name is as a dragon, do great battle while they fight with their foes. It is an epic battle. It is an almost 4-hour battle. Eventually the party wins. Their foes are slain except for Anathema, who escapes with Diaz the dragon through a rift that he is able to open in space. And then the players are given 2 years off. They're given 2 years off to go find their things. Vilkas and Kazaroth, the two Lycan characters. Now, Vilkas, who's been appointed the Jarl of Blackmoor by the priest who has risen high into the ranks of the Imperial government, he becomes the Jarl of Blackmoor. He weds Kazaroth, they have 3 children, and they also adopt a little gnoll named Gwarf, who's been traveling with the party from the beginning, from right near the beginning, and they've taken care of him. He's kind of become almost their mascot, as much as something that they care about and worry about and come home to. They have a happy life. Nexa goes back to Santa Morena, of all places. She does the medieval equivalent of a Ponzi scheme and comes out fabulously wealthy. Casita, who is an assassin, takes command of the monastic assassins order that she was raised to be a part of, becomes the head of the organization, and also becomes fabulously wealthy. Elrahir sets up a small business in Blackmoor, brewing potions and other daily needs. He's able to do this because the magic in the world is so overwhelming right now. That's why the characters have leveled so quickly, why the characters are allowed to get away with a lot of things involving magic or spellcasting or healing, because the world is so closely knit, the universe, the multiverse that is usually represented within the sort of Pathfinder Dungeons and Dragons world is so close. The material plane is so surrounded by the elemental planes that magic is flowing and coursing through almost everything. And don't forget that this is a very new world. There's oodles of magic, just buckets of it all around that people can tap into. It wasn't always that way. We started as a low fantasy campaign, and just sort of the cosmology brought us into a high fantasy campaign. On the other hand, Triss, she tried to become a professional beast hunter, which didn't go so well for her, but she's still alive. We're happy to do that. Eliseth went on some adventures. She's trying to figure out what happened to her town, which was destroyed by a dragon many years ago, and she's on a hunt to find the dragon who did it. And I believe that brings us through all of our characters. Off the top of my head, I am saying that is... Yes, that is all of our characters. I have fabulously enjoyed running this game. I hope you enjoy it too. I hope that was a quick brush up. I know I went pretty fast. Hopefully you'll catch on. I will try and be better about making references for things you may not know. I know I also referenced Chessie Wesker. Chessie Wesker is an imperial bureaucrat who is also a bookkeeper for the monastic order of assassins. The guy with the Russian accent whom Tasha talks to is Daishan, her retired former mentor. He is a drow, or we should say a reformed drow who has come to the surface and built quite a nifty little life for himself. There are other characters who are just going to be wandering around. I will try and do a better job of introducing them. And to sum up last week, basically last week the characters had a dinner party, where after which Bertram reappeared and sucked them into basically a battle royale, where they experienced a good deal of pain and torment. After they came out of it, that is when Vilkas runs back into the room. As it turns out, Kenneth Renray, a wizard, friend of the party, and a servant of Berendir. He was formerly allied with another wizard who worked with Berendir named Concordia, who has disappeared. And they are challenged by this Berendir character to undergo a quest that doesn't make any sense at the beginning. They ask for a new champion of Taria, even though Kazaroth is the champion of Taria, still reigning. No one has defeated her. She is still alive and fulfilling her quest as the champion of Taria, mostly off-screen to the players. But since she has settled down, I mean, she has children, she has a husband, and no offense to Vilkas, but she is the brains of the power couple of Blackmoor. He is the charisma and the military tactics. She's the brains, mostly. So they receive this more or less pointless quest. They don't know how to handle it. Kenneth Renray, wizard and friend of the party, comes in, rolls a natural 20 on perception, and immediately knows that that is not Bertram. That is not Berendir disguised as Bertram. That is something else. It is revealed to be Admiral Diaz in his dragon form, taunting them, trying to get them to join with him. He tells them that there is a cadre of dark wizards on the island of Malambard, the place where Tasha's character, Casita, first entered the world from the dark realm below, and also a place where Harley's character, Nexa's grandfather, a powerful dark wizard in his own right, also went towards the end of his wizarding career. They are warned by this. Diaz warns them of this island where dark wizards who want to overthrow the Empire are supposedly lurking. The players are very skeptical of this. He informs them that there is a wizard nearby who they can talk to if they have any questions, and they decide to go question him rather than making any deal with Diaz, who has tried to kill them multiple times. He even seems to be perfectly happy to backstab his own ally, Anathema. So we leave the characters kind of with this. The two big bad guys in the campaign have escaped from them. They are still trying to figure out what to do. Last week is not going to be how we usually run games. We usually have a lot more adventurous games. We usually roll a lot more dice. It's just that this is the first time in several months we've played these characters. We took a break to do another campaign that was a lot of fun because some people had to study abroad. And it was a great game. I really enjoyed it, but it was very, very taxing on me, and we all loved this game. We loved the setting, we loved the characters, and it was really, really nice to get back to it. So I hope you enjoy. If you have any further questions, drop them in the comments. I will try and do a better job introducing places and people. So I need to work on it. Sometimes I can be very elaborate with my descriptions, but sometimes I just get really excited and rush through things, especially because my players know what something looks like. It doesn't mean that you do. So yesterday was a bit of a bad spectator sport, but hopefully we'll fix that in the upcoming week. I hope you're all having a great night. I hope you tune in for our stream tomorrow night, probably starting somewhere around 7:30. I'm not sure. Thank you guys. I'm really surprised. We have 33 views as of yet on the stream, and that's really nice. And we're approaching the double digits in subscribers, which is better than I thought this was going to do. If you like this, please do share. Please do follow us on Twitter or Instagram or whatever sort of things you do that we talked about. And if you heard any weird noise in the background, that is some sort of horrific icy precipitation tumbling from the Pennsylvania sky, because it is disgusting out. Alright, thank you all, and have a fabulous night, Internet. Please tune in tomorrow. Bye.